quo. Whew. I think I figured out my issue. I think. Not positive. Properties. I think. Whew. It's quiet down here in the basement. Nothing's printing, but I got a whole bunch of people in chat. So, a little slow start, but shout out to Never Let the Machines Win. Sent me the shirt, so I decided to wear it. It's a little husky on me. I'm used to wearing my black. This is a little odd wearing my orange. But yeah, so in this box, Aaron Oaks sent me a complete Mark 3S extruder, and he has had nothing but issues. It just keeps jamming, and this tends to be about a daily occurrence on the Prusa Facebook groups that people just can't get their Mark 3S extruders to stop from jamming. And I've never had the issue unless I bring my printer out in the wild. So when I'm not in my super cold basement, sometimes I'll get a stock extruder to jam. It's not all the time, but a lot of the time. So right here is one that happens all the time. His basement temperatures have been recorded. It's, you know, he's not in any different situation than I am, but it just keeps jamming, and this is something that bothers me. It's like, what can we do to fix that? Why is this hot end jamming more so than other hot ends? So let's take it apart and figure it out. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to document this live. Overhead on? Yes, overhead is on. Can I adjust that overhead quality? Jeez. That is just not bright enough for me. Oh, that's better. And then camera control. Ooh, white balance. Can I warm that up a little bit? It's trying to do the auto thing. That's better. I think that's better. Apply OK. Done. Okay. All right. Let's cut this thing open. It's not wrapped in black garbage bag. Well, you know, brown paper works just as well. So let's see what we have inside of here. Opening up this entire extruder. I mean, we have everything in here. It's the extruder, the entire thing. There might even be cables. Ooh, packaged in a Prusa box. Looks to be so. It is. Ooh. It's like dust and stuff in here. I'm going to open this away from me, maybe? There's a lot of, like, candy dust in here or something. Let's see. We have a thumb drive with the files. Oh! We got some candy here. So we got, unfortunately, it got ripped open. Some Manor Vine, some Neapolitan little wafer chocolates, some gummy candies, some kind of weird candy, and some Smarties, and some Sweet Tarts, Skull and Bones, and a marzipan. Because who doesn't like some marzipan? But what's important here is this extruder. And here's the print he was printing before it jammed. And it's not that complex of a print. There are some small printing moves. And he's tried multiple things. We worked on settings. We worked on different profiles. It continued to jam. So let's see here. And he even signed it. So let me pull it up to here. So there's the Aaron Oaks signature. That way we know it's not some other extruder. And it still has the filament tag end on it. This looks like some pretty normal white filament. Hot end looks good. The typical thin profile there, that melted off. That's pretty typical on a Mark 3S. They actually just beefed that up in a recent part revision. So, external viewings of this aren't showing me much. It looks built correctly. Nothing is loose. All the parts are fitting correctly. You know, they say don't make sure there's no gaps. There's no gaps in any of the shells. The Bondtech door is tight. I mean, let me actually get a tool in here. What's up, Robbie? Yeah, the Bondtech door is nice and tight. There's good tension on it, so it's not like there's loose filament and it was grinding away. We do have a lot of dust, so I don't know if we can see inside of there. Whoop. There's a lot of dust. And the Noctua fan is already underpowered, so it could be that there's a lot of dust, which would then even lower the pressure that's coming out of the Noctua. It shouldn't affect it too much. Ooh, so Hackers just ordered a titanium heat break, and that should help. I mean, some people switch to a completely smooth E3D heat break, and that helps. And that makes sense because there's just more room. It shouldn't be the case. People are using the Mark 3S, the Mark 3 specialized heat break just fine. So let me get my feeler gauge, and then one of the things I like to check is to make sure the hot end is assembled correctly. And it looks to be pretty darn close to correct. So let's find out how much gap there is between the nozzle and the heater block. So we'll start at 0.2 millimeters, and that feeler gauge slides right in there. So let's try 0.4 millimeters and see if that feeler gauge slides under there. It does snugly. So 0.4 millimeters is good. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. So I got 0.45 as my next feeler gauge. Does that fit? It does not. I mean, I can jam it in there. So somewhere between 0.4 and 0.5 millimeters is about where it sits. Now, if we build a stock E3D V6 correctly, so here is a stock E3D V6 and the heat break and nozzle and a heat block. We need all those things. We need all the things. Have I sent Walter's Purple Bear? No, it's still right. I still need to put the rest of the bits on it. If you guys didn't know, last time I was on a show with, there was a live stream with 5 of us. It was Walter and Chris Riley from Chris's Basement, Walter from Country 3D, and same horrible names. But we're on another show together. So the proper way to install your E3D V6 is to make sure you set the heat break in first, and then you're going to set the nozzle in fully, and you back it out about 1/3 of a turn. So here's 1/4, and that's about 1/3, and then we're going to set the heat break to the nozzle. And I don't have the full tightness on here, but let's see if that's still going to be 0.4 millimeters. And 0.4 millimeters does not fit under there. It's just stopping. So I can't actually get it to slide under there completely. So it could be that it's a misassembled extruder hot end. Let's try 0.35. 0.35 fits in perfectly fine. So if I tighten this another third turn when you heat this thing back up, that might actually be the issue. It might just be a poorly assembled hot end. So note that. Note that the first thing that we found that is a little bit different is based on E3D's own build guide. That gap is a little bit larger. It's not a huge deal. What happens when the gap is larger, that means our heat break is inserting deeper into the actual heat block. So cooling happens in the incorrect zone in the metal. So it could be an issue, but it could not be. Clemens. Hey, Clemens. Yeah, the Sanan fan is a great upgrade. So, I mean, for people who are having that, the Sanan is like 50% more powerful than the Noctua. It's still not as powerful as a stock E3D V6 little 30 millimeter cooler. That thing is still more powerful than a Sanan fan. But, you know, it's better than not having that. Yeah, you do need to install thermal paste. I'm just measuring, so the thermal paste doesn't matter. The thermal paste is not going to stop it from seating how it should seat. So, so let's see here. Other than the dust in here, it sees. Wait. Oh, the fan didn't even need to be installed. Yeah, it just knew. It knew that it was coming. So yeah, other than that, the hot end looks assembled. It has the little dot from Prusa. So if you look, there's a little dot telling you that it's a Prusa hot end. You can definitely tell there's thermal paste in there because there's thermal paste coming out of the heat break. So let's go further. Let's disconnect this. And let's take off the top little cover here. Ooh, Alien 3D in the house. You've never used thermal paste. Well, that's silly. So the filament came right out, and it is chewed up pretty good. So it looks like it jammed and continued to try to print. So I don't know if I'll be able to show that on camera very well, but, you know, we try. So you can see where it's chewed up at the end there. Right there. Where my eye should be. So it's chewed up. Other than that, nothing I wasn't going to expect anyway. Test the other end of this. Yeah, the filament sensor works just fine. Let's open up this door. See what's in there. One spring. Alignment-wise, the Bondtech gear dead center. You can definitely tell where the filament was chewed out. But I mean, it's dead center on that little stub of filament in there. Let's see if I yeah, there's no way to show that very well on there. I need a fancy camera setup. There's definitely chunks of filament in here. Filament path looks, I mean, the Bondtech gear is dead center on that. There's definitely little bits of gunk in here from the filament grinding. Let's make sure the Bondtech gear spins. Spins just fine, so it's not like it was that was jamming. So far, nothing telling. Let's take this Bondtech door off. It's always the fun thing when you start examining hot ends. Oof, that Prusa print quality. Oof. Oof. Let's take the motor off. And it was back plate off. Yeah, Keith, I've seen quite a few Prusa Hotends, and the ones that tend to be the worst tend to be built incorrectly, at least to what E3D says is correct. And I'm not always perfect in my E3D assembly, but, you know, we get as close as we can. Let's see here. Nothing telling there. Hey, Jake from State Farm. This is a recent unit. He's had it for since, like, I mean, this is part C1. So, I'll have to double check with him exactly when he got it. But it's not an old unit. But ever since he's had it, he said he's had jamming issues. And this just looks like that Creality white filament. The print quality was great. It looks like as is trying to do all these small retractions here and all that, it just started jamming, which is, you know, unfortunate because, you know, retractions are part of the game. Hey, what's up, Knack? We got White Knight in the house. Come here. Come here. So the next thing to do is just to make sure the PTFE tube isn't, like, fully destroyed. Oh, that magnet. But one thing I like to check is the centering of the Bondtech gear. So one of the issues that I have with the Prusa R4 extruder is this plate can move around quite a bit. So let me show you this. If you look at his signature, see how signature is all lined up? I can unscrew this and I can twist this thing in a whole bunch of manners. So basically, the screws that center the plate that holds the motor in, there's room for you to move the Bondtech gear towards you, further away, up, down, left, and right. So the screw holes aren't set to the diameter of the actual 3mm screw, which is like 2.9 something millimeters, which gives you wiggle room. So, I mean, I can screw this thing all cattywampus, and I can end up with text that doesn't line up very well anymore. So, yeah, the thing's completely, now it's way off center. The Bondtech gear is moved forward right now towards me, so the Bondtech gear is now off center. And this is one of the complaints I've had with Prusa is you have to have that Bondtech gear lined up. If the Bondtech gear is not lined up, so if it's too far off to one side or the other, it's either going to be too much pressure or too little pressure for one Bondtech gear. So, and we got everybody in here. We got Alien 3D, Chris, 3D Jimmy, Brian Vines, Jake from State Farm, the German 3D printing nerd, White Knight, Clemens, Ewan, geez Louise, we got Keith and RCCNC. So that's one of my, I mean, again, one of my little complaints is that you can decenter the Bondtech gear depending on how you, I mean, there's quite a bit of wiggle room. Up, down, left, right. So you can slide it this way, you can slide it this way. So It's not the most accurate method for installing the extruder. So if this is misaligned, adding it in just going to add more issues. So, yeah. Other than that, I mean, the way he had it was pretty darn spot on. So it was a kit. So, yeah, quite a bit of movement in there. Bondtech gear is tight. Motor spins freely. I still don't see why there would be an issue. So here's the culprit. There's nothing wrong with the E3D V6. It's a very fine hot end. The E3D has taken their time out to basically hand deliver a working hot end. You know, they have a fan that works with it. Now, one of the things that I will say that I don't like about what Prusa does is they don't ship with a collet clip. So the collet is raised. So I didn't raise it. It's been raised. But if I move this towards the camera, you can still move this thing in and out. Oop, let me move my... You can still move this up and down. So during a retraction, there's still a little bit of wiggle room, even with the collet clip up. So... I always recommend, if you're having issues, install a collet clip. I mean, they're like a nickel. You can print them. Doesn't help you if you get a fresh kit and it's your first printer. But yeah, this collet clip is not my favorite. And not having the collet clip is definitely one of my pet peeves. And I mean, I can move this up and down and the filament stays there. So I mean, let me get even closer. So I mean, that is still raised, and it still moves up and down. Actually, let me grab a pair of pliers. Do I have a pair? I do have a pair of pliers. That way my fat fingers don't get in the way. So collet clip is raised, and I can still move it. I mean, it's not a whole bunch, but it's still moving up and down. And that's why E3D suggests to have a collet clip. So if I lower it now, it's not... ooh, PTFE tube will come out. It's a lot of work, but I can get the PTFE tube out. Ooh, we got 3D Gusner. Nice. So I got the PTFE tube without removing the actual filament. And then I have a Prusa. So Prusa did change how they do the tip shape on their PTFE tube. So this PTFE tube right here, that's what was inside the hot end. So the one that looks like it's on your... The one on this side is the one that was installed. And if you look really closely to the shape, it's a little bit different. His actually is the same height. And it's not damaged, so the hole is definitely a lot larger. So, yeah, collet clips are the savior of the little bit of wiggle. Because you got to imagine, when you're doing little retractions, the PTFE tube is moving up with the filament and then down with the filament on the retraction, making it a little bit sloppy. So, not the best. So that came out really easy. I mean, and it's not too damaged. I mean, I was hoping to maybe it was super damaged. Maybe there was a giant like ball of filament at the end that was blocking it. So here's the stock one. Here's his. All right. Now here's the hard part. I want to try to get that piece of filament out as intact as possible. So let's grab a tool, like a wrench of some sort, maybe even a wrench. Okay. Okay. See how little I need to heat it up to get that hot end off. Nope. Gonna have to do it the old-fashioned way. Feels even. Yeah. Okay, heat that nozzle up. Don't burn your hand. Don't start a fire. It's not a good day for fire. Okay. I think I got it. Yep. Please tell me there's something. Oof. Can I pull it out? I did. Oh, I pulled it out. Look at that. That's cool. And yeah, there is a bulb at the end of that. Let me hook up my macro camera. I haven't hooked that up in a while. Excuse me while I fish for the plug for the macro camera. Let's see here. Ooh. Okay. Now let's plug in my fancy light box over here. And let's take a look at this piece of plastic that I have in front of me. Give me 1 second. Okay. Okay. Ooh, take a swig of water. Oh. That is some refreshing H2O. All right, let's see if the macro camera is working. Don't think it is. It's on. Let me reset it up here real quick. Back to main. I guess I gotta do it the old-fashioned way. Aha! It worked. Done. Okay, macro camera. Oh, I think it just freaked out. And okay. Let's turn it just a little bit. And where's that piece of filament? Dun, dun, dun. Okay, come on, little piece of filament. Where'd you go? That's what I get for shifting around. Boy. Did I lose it? Did I lose that little piece of filament? That would be silly. That's what I get for not having a macro camera set up the entire time. I lost that little piece of filament. I'll find it. It's in the basement somewhere. So it can't go far. Let me turn on a regular camera while I figure that off. Overhead. Okay. Where did I put that little white piece of filament? Just to make sure it's not here. I guess I could replay the video. Where did Chris take it? It's not in that little box. There's a whole bunch of little screws here. It's not in this box. It's not in this box. It's not here. It's not the LDO bearing. It's not all these little things. I just want to show you the little bulbous end on it to show you why it might have jammed. But of course, I decided to drop it somewhere. See what chat says. In that place you put that thing that one time. It's to my right. I mean, it is to my right. It has to be to my right. Good call, though. Yeah. Kona would definitely find it if it was hooked to a tennis ball. Okay, it's not there. This is good. We're eliminating things. Boy, I had it in my hand. I set up this thingy. It's not on top of this thing, is it? Nope. Nope. Did I drop it on the floor? Nope. How to kill the momentum of a YouTube channel. Lose the thing that you were studying, and then hunt for it for 30 minutes. I'll find it, though. Start moving things from here to there. Ooh, how do you install this? Gotta install that on my printer. On my lap. Did I really set it down on my lap? Oh, you're correct. There it is. Macro. So let's turn that there. Where's the focus point? There we go. So this is the bulb at the end of the filament. And there was actually almost no filament inside of the nozzle. So that is an interesting looking thing. Let me grab a fresh nozzle. So this is the nozzle from it. And as you can see, this is really hard to do backwards. It was pretty hollow. Huh. Interesting. So I'm going to grab a fresh nozzle, and I'm going to see if that little ball can fit in the nozzle. Is that ball too big? Will it jam? So that's as far as I can insert the ball. It's actually too big to go back inside of the nozzle. Now, inside the nozzle is already in the hot zone. I mean, you can see that that ball is huge. So a little bit fits into a fresh E3D V6 nozzle. So let's grab a fresh Mark III heat break. And this always happens when you mess with a stock. And when you screw that in there, the thing gets jammed. There we go. Inside of the Bowden tube, good question. Like having this macro lens set up here. But we'll see how. Focus. At least my fingernails are clean. Inside looks pretty good. I mean, there's some grit and stuff in there. The orifice is, you know, not damaged. Still pretty round. I mean, there's some crud in there for sure. You know, both ends there's some crud, some dust, but, you know. I slid this out over the bulb. So here's a fresh Prusa heat break, and we can prove that by, wait, there's no step in there. Wait, let me look from this side. Oh yeah, there's the step. See that little step? So that's what Prusa did in their heat break, is they added that little step which helps form the tip properly on MMU. So if there was a jam, that's where it should happen. And I can only insert the filament that far before it gets jammed. And it's actually right at that lip. Now if I insert the other end goes through just fine. There's a little bit of wiggle room, but not much. But trying to insert that ball of filament, there's definitely a point where it just stops. And it's right there. I'm trying to force it in there, and it's jammed right at that step. And it's very interesting if you look at the design of the tip. There's actually like a notch in the center. So let me put my finger there. So you can see that there's the bulb where the molten filament is, and then there's a line in the center where it thins out. And then there's this air gap because it jammed above the melt zone. And all the melted filament. This is so hard to do, especially since it's manually focused at a point. There we go. Yeah, so now you can see that groove better. Now let's take a look at his heat break. So this might be hard to see inside of there, but we'll take a look at it anyway. So you can see the step in there, all the way down in there. Let me try to get that centered. There we go. So there's the step in there. Pretty clean. There's some schmutz here from where the filament was just at the melt zone. So remember, the melt zone ends right about where the PTF, or right where the heat sink reaches the throat here. So your melt zone is still in this area. Heat creep would cause that to raise up higher, and it would cause it to raise it above that step. So that step is definitely the issue when you have heat creep. So you shouldn't be, I wish there was a way to measure exactly where that was. I mean, you can see that most of the filament fed out. Like when I heated up the nozzle, whoop, I mean, that is pretty empty in that cavity. There's just air in that cavity. Boy, that brass sure does get gross. Well, that's the issue, Ewan. So it's not that... Oh, let me go to a regular camera mode. I wish I had a giant hot end in front of me, you know, or like graphics. So heat creep is the issue. It raises where the molten material is, and if that molten material raises above the step, and it cools above the step, and you try to go into the step, you're going to get a jam, and then it plugs, and then you're done. The way the E3D V6 is designed, that molten material should be below that step. So if you look at their diagrams of where the melt zone is, it's not way up where the step is. The step is actually above that. So we're getting some issues. And to Chris's question, isn't that the same problem Joel had? So I sent Joel a Sanan fan, and he hasn't installed it yet. He just, that was at Murph. So basically, a better cooling of the E3DV6 should keep that melt zone where it should be at, and the heat creep is keeping it above that, and we're having jams. And this definitely shows me that's why. It's happening above. It doesn't fit back through that step. Now let me go through my box of goodies. I have a stock E3D V6 heat break. Will the bulb pass through? So basically what I'm getting at is swapping to a stock E3D V6 heat break doesn't solve the whole issue. What it does is a band-aid. So it's still allowing the heat creep, and because there's no step, the heat creep doesn't cause a jam. It's not heat creeping high enough to jam on a stock one. So I know I have them in here. I've got stock everything in these boxes. Ooh, wait. Shouldn't I have it down here in my Hotends box? Hotends box. Yep. And I have an E3D titanium. So this is the titanium. I have it labeled with my label maker. For anyone's that brains that hurt, my brain hurts too. There was no silicone sock. I mean, you can tell that there's no silicone sock because it's covered in goober, and he sent it to me as complete as possible, and there wouldn't be that much goober on it if it was there. But this is let me go back to macro mode. Macro. This is what a standard E3D V6 hot end looks like on the inside. It is smooth completely. Let me get that focus. There's no step. So if I take that filament jam that I had, wherever I decided to set it down again, I should just have a leash on that thing. Ooh, boy. Now where did I set it down? See if chat can find it again. Did I set it down on my lap again? Which then ends up on the floor. Exactly. So Hill CT gets it. So swapping to the stock salt, it fixes it puts a band-aid on the issue. So you shouldn't get the jam because it should still pass through because it doesn't have that that little notch. But better cooling would make the original one work the way it's supposed to work. And remember that Prusa invented that notched heat break for the MMU1, and that uses a stock E3D V6 30mm fan, which has way better cooling than their Noctua fan. So yeah, so here's our filament ball again. Back to macro mode. Here's our stock E3D V6. We can tell because there's no step inside there. No step. Let's see if I can get two hands in here. Let's see if that passes through. Let's see here. Right there. So this ball won't even go in. That's as far as it will go in. Because the heat break diameters are different. Prusa uses a 1.9 something. So that ball won't even go into it. And whoop! Can show that even better by going in reverse. The filament fits, but the ball stops there. Prusa's design is also a little bit larger in diameter, so we are stuck right there. That ball wouldn't even form because the filament path is just narrower, so there's no ball to form. So I can't even say, hey, maybe it'll pass through. But the ball won't get as big. The ball is getting larger because Prusa's design is just larger in general in the heat break. I do have another one to show you. This is the titanium. So titanium versus stock is actually interesting. A lot of people haven't seen this. Now this is one that I've used. I pulled it out of a printer after testing. So look at the orifices. So this is stock on top, and this one that looks like it's worn, that's because I was testing it for thermals. I ran a temperature sensor in there while it was running to see if its thermals were better. The hole's actually bigger. The diameter is actually larger for filament in the E3D V6 titanium. And I can prove it's titanium. Well, it's non-magnetic. The stock ones are steel, so this magnet doesn't do anything. Oh, well, it's hard to show you. How do you quiet the gear in the Bondtech? Does Superlube help? What noise are you having in the gear? So let's see if this filament ball will go through this one. So here we are back with the titanium. And, yep, that actually fits inside of there. It stops at a point, but it is a larger diameter orifice completely through. And then the Prusa one. And the Prusa one has the step inside. Yeah, won't even go further than that. Just like the stock one. And then we'll do a quick side-by-side of stock versus Prusa. So yeah, there's your step. There's your no step. You can see the orifice is actually larger. Might be hard to tell, but the orifice is larger on the Prusa one versus stock. Prusa's on. You know, the larger diameter should mean it can cool faster. Is it better? I have no idea. At this point, it's hard to tell. So here's E3D. Here's Prusa. And where's my step? There's my step. And that is where the jam is happening. So the step isn't helping. The heat creep isn't helping either. So that was a nice series of interesting learnings here. So his PTFE tube wasn't damaged. It was just fine. Let's see if this will actually fit through the PTFE tube. Ooh. So the ball won't even fit through the PTFE tube, the little bulb, as far as it goes. And you can jam that through. That is just not a good sign. So what do we got in chat here? Yeah, Caleb, you're not the only one who's having major issues with the heat creep in a Mark 3S. And, you know, I have... you know, Enders and CR10s and artilleries and 3 custom printers hand built with all kinds of stuff, and they don't have this issue. I've definitely had this experience before. I have to, you you know, I can make it happen. It shouldn't happen. But yeah, that's definitely, this is definitely why it's happening and where it's happening. To answer Chris's question, so why is the step there? So in Prusa's testing, when you are doing the filament change on an MMU, that step helps shape the tip because it's ramming inside. So I wish I had like a large thing, but basically, as dumb as this looks, that step kind of scrapes the filament, so when it pulls out, you get a finer tip. Does it actually do that? I have no idea. Yep. And but we definitely, all I can say is we know where the jam happens. You know, I can insert. So this is actually the funny thing on the Prusa one. Let me go back to the macro mode. Macro mode. I can insert the filament in the other end. Oop, there we go. Wait. This is so hard to do in reverse land with two hands. Wait, hold on. This is why I have this clampy tool here. So I can insert this this bulb into the filament all the way to that step. And that's how it's supposed to work. That bulb is supposed to not happen, and you're supposed to be able to scrape that bulb out. But as we've shown, it stops right at that step. So when I remove this, that means 100%. When I remove this piece of filament from Aaron's heat break, it was in that zone where that step is. So is the step worth it? If you don't have an MMU and you're not going to use an MMU, that step is completely worthless. I mean, it doesn't do anything. You're not going to, you're not going to get its advantage or its purpose. So no, swapping to a stock E3D V6 heat break is perfectly fine. Should you go out and have to buy one? No. What probably would be better is Prusa ship either a better fan to alleviate the issue and that you can keep the heat break, or ship you a stock E3D V6 heat break, and then if you buy an MMU, they send you either a new hot end with a new heat break or send you a new heat break and you have to install it, which is a pain in the butt. I mean, understandably so. Yeah, like Ewan said, it doesn't help if you don't have an MMU, and that's my point, is that step, if you're never going to use an MMU, if you're going to buy a mosaic palette or some other, method, a crane or whatever, yeah, it's an unnecessary step. But that was interesting. So my goal now is to order. I'm going to try to find another user who has constant jamming on their hot end and buy that one as well. So basically what I did with Aaron was I didn't buy it. What I did was I bought all of the pieces stock. So I bought a brand new E3DV6 stock. I assembled it myself. I printed all the parts and assembled it myself and sent him a complete brand new hot end. So I'm going to find one more person. I'm going to do one more test. I'm going to, it has to have the jam in it. I have to be able to take it apart. And, I mean, that you saw it live. There's no movie magic. The jam happens at the step. And you can tell from the cavity, I mean, it's just, you can tell from that cavity that there was no filament. It's shiny. I mean, it was jammed right where it was jammed at. All the filament had expunged out. And it looks like it continued to try to expunge filament until it just jammed. I mean, that is compressed, expanded filament into a ball. And it does not go through You know, it's not like there was a nozzle jam. There's no filament in the nozzle. So there's no, you know, if when I heated up the nozzle and filament was shooting out of it, which normally it would if there was filament in there, I had no filament oozing out when I heated it up to take off the nozzle. It also was very easy to take off the nozzle because there wasn't any filament in between the nozzle and the heat break. It just came right off. So, yeah. So I'm going to go back to the Facebook group and post another, you know, hey, I need one more, and I want to confirm this. The Hotend was assembled correctly. There was a little bit of dust, which could keep, you know, the thermals incorrect, but, you know, this shouldn't be the issue. There's the way to identify the impacted unit is look for the 1 dot versus 2 dots. It did only have 1 dot on the heat break, or on the block. So it has 1 dot marked there. It is a recent unit. I don't know how recent. He said he got it pretty recently. But he's always had jamming issues, so. Yeah, the hardening thermal paste isn't fun. Yeah, that's always the. I'm gonna disassemble this even more, and then rebuild it, and then, you know, I have no idea. You know, I'm kind of at a loss at the moment. So, yeah, that was part 1. So I'm going to have a part 2 to this, and my part 2 is going to be basically rebuilding a Hotend from scratch, and showing you all the little nuances on rebuilding it. I have a Hotend E3DV6 Hotend assembly video in my video list, but I definitely want to have another one of these in hand to take apart, just like I did today, and see if I get the exact same appearance. So I'm going to keep this, you know, keep this filament tip and not lose it on the floor somewhere, because apparently I'm good at losing these things within 5 feet of myself. Other than that, the goal was accomplished for the day. It was super easy to take that apart. You know, we looked at the little things that can go wrong in assembly, which is just that little motor plate, which can misalign the Bondtech gear. But this is definitely not a misaligned Bondtech gear. This is definitely heat creep. It definitely is forming that ball above the step, which it shouldn't be. That's above the melt zone. Let me see if I can find a picture of the E3DV6 melt zone. Images. What? Sorry, no results. Ah, okay. No, no, So this is pretty good. Let's screen share here. Where is it? Where is it? Screen share button. Boom. So here is, let's see, can I zoom in on this? Yes. So your melt zone is here. So it's heating here. This is your entire melt zone. It starts to cool about here, which the step is actually in relationship to here, is about in this, right above the melt zone. It shouldn't be hot enough to melt this. Now, the people who have the issues with heat creep, it's 99.9% PLA or HTPLA. And PLA has a basically the glass transition temperature and the temperature in which the filament begins to get soft is about 50 degrees Celsius. So, I mean, right here you're printing at 100, 200, and 200 degrees Celsius. by here it has to be below 50°C, and then in here it's got to be, you know, cold. So it's you know, that heat creep, you know, that's, you know, maybe the step is the issue. So maybe the step is the issue. That's the least probably the you know, the only conclusion I can come up with right now is the step is one of the issues. Is it because of the heat creep? Yes. 3 Jimmy, trying to be somewhat educational. Definitely gets my brain working. Robert, the Facebook group that I admin along with a bunch of awesome people is the Prusa Community Facebook group. I don't have Facebook on this computer. I didn't log in on Facebook on my streaming machine. It's purely for streaming and for, you know, doing YouTube videos and doing videos for YouTube. So I don't do any fun and game. I don't even have, like, I don't even know if the pinball game is still on. I don't think that's installed. This was just like a fresh install of Windows. Man, interesting stream, interesting stuff here. I mean, I was able to pull that that little jam out pretty easily. Let's see, where's a flashlight? Ooh, I'll take all the Norwegian love. Let's get my flashlight in there. I guess what I can do is insert this, mark it, go here. Yeah. Yeah. So an approximation here. What I'm doing is I'm inserting the filament where it stops, crudely marking it with my hand, and trying to level to the same spot on the piece here. So where it's actually stopping is right above the melt zone. So yeah. I am horrible at ABS. I don't have an enclosure, so my basement is always really cool. Every time I print ABS, even if I print like 10 fan shrouds, overhangs are garbage. I am going to start printing polycarbonate. I am going to order a printed solid enclosure so I can start printing some more materials that are crazy. Ooh, 8mm G6 500. 3 Jimmy, have you tried Masumi? If you're in the United States, Masumi sells literally everything. And they do have G6 quality. I don't know what their maximum length is, but it should be 500. I think it's 1,000 millimeters is their maximum length on a smooth rod. Yeah. Okay. That's it. Short stream today. Any questions before I disappear and change into a black shirt? As much as I love this shirt, it's going to go in my wall of collections of shirts from cool things. I didn't even wash it. It's, you know, it's a little big. Ooh, the lac enclosure. I used to have a lac. I didn't build the enclosure parts to it. I just built the lac, and I had my printers in it when I had my Mark IIs. I do miss having some kind of cage around it. Yep, and RCCNC, yep, the Facebook group with the Prusa Bear upgrade is awesome. Ooh. And no problem, Mr. CNC. You have to send me one of those crazy new printers you're working on. Put on stream. I also need to get... I'm trying to set up streams with more of the local celebrities of the 3D printing. So I hopefully get Zane Rogers on here and get, you know, Fotis back on and Vedran all then. You know, I don't know why not a chamfer. I think it would probably be better to be a chamfer. I don't know. Um, maybe if I can get a machinist to machine that thing into a chamfer, maybe we can test it and see if that causes less jams. So I almost feel bad sending Aaron a E3D V6 with a Mark III heat break in there, because there wasn't anything wrong with his assembly. I mean, the motor was lined up about as centered as you can get. Everything was put together correctly. I would say the build of the hot end was a little bit incorrect, but I mean, it's not so incorrect that, oh my gosh, I don't think it actually was the issue. I literally think the issue is the cooling and that step, and it's jamming right above the step, and there's no way through it. It won't even fit in a stock E3D V6, and the E3D V6, stock heat break wouldn't have that issue because there's no step. And if there's heat creep, it might form a ball, but it's not going to form a ball in an area that's going to cause a jam as quickly. There you go. So RCCNC, order up a Mark III. Mark III heat break from Printed Solid, or I can send you one. And if you want to machine that for me into a chamfer, and then send it back so I can, I don't know how I'm going to test it. None of my printers jam. I could try to cause it by printing in like a hot room or something with PLA, like in an enclosure. Because that's the thing is, if I print in an like most people that print in an enclosure have no issues printing PLA in an enclosure. If you have a Prusa and you print in an enclosure, you get jams. So could it be the step? Could it be the cooling? Could it be a lot of things? I think it is. So, all right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the cool shirts. Thank you for the food, Mr. Aaron. Thank you for helping me out and autographing this, so that way there was no way of tomfoolery. Thank you everyone for being patient while I lost this little piece of filament, which I need to store somewhere. Hi, Dave. Of course I'm not done. I'm actually just tuning off, but yeah. So hopefully that was somewhat informative. Step 2 will either be, if I can get another hot end in sooner, that will be step 2, or step 2 to this will be correctly building one. Yeah. Could choke off the cooling to test. I mean, could put a cheaper fan on there. I think just putting what I did when I was able to put jams in my printer, I took my printer and put it in the bathroom and turned on the shower to hot, and the room got warm, and eventually I was getting jams. So I mean, I actually had to put it in an area that wasn't probably the best for it to print in to make it jam. I also don't have any stock. Don't have any stock printers right now, so I have to order one. So Podline, yeah, and that's the thing is some people print fine, and that's the thing is I don't know what the one little thing. That's the goal of this, is to find what is the one little. Is it the cooling? Is it the step? Is it something? Is it the build? Is it that little bit of a build issue where, we took the feeler gauges and we found the distance was a little bit off. Was it that? Is it the chamfer? Is it this? So, yeah. Ooh, David's over there thinking, and you must think I'm an electrician. You thought wrong. Oh man! All right. Guinea pigging is always fun. If we can chamfer up a few of those heat breaks. So Dave, get in touch with RCCNC. We're not measuring humidity. So the humidity we haven't measured. It was indoors in an air-conditioned building, so the humidity should be pretty low. We could try that. We could try measuring the humidity. So my basement is actually pretty humid. So, and again, I don't have that. But yeah, Dave, get in touch with RCCNC, and I'll get in touch with you too, Dave, after this, and we'll take a look at sending some E3D-V6 Mark 3S heat breaks to get machined into a chamfer versus being a step and see if that does anything. So, cool beans. I'm going to go practice building a hot end and then go work on editing. Time to go editing. All right, thanks, everyone. Good night. Stay out of trouble. Don't do things I would do unless they're cool things. And I don't do very many cool things besides print. So, good night. Stay out of trouble. And thank you, as always. Oh, no, Dave. You're not chamfering it. RCCNC is chamfering it. So, good night. Boom. End.